So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of The Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today from the band Kardashev, I have Nico Morelli, who's the guitar player, and we're here to talk about their upcoming new album, Alunea, which comes out April 25th through Metal Blade Records. So, first of all, Nico, how are you over there in Germany?
I'm doing well, Hector. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. Germany's really nice today. The weather is really good. I'm a little chilly, which feels good to say because I come from a very hot part of Arizona. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, it's a different contrast, Arizona to Germany. So you guys, like you've been known to have like a sound called Death Gaze, but
Yeah.
this record and this album in particular, there's more prog elements. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of the sound of Kardashev.
Yeah, sure. So I appreciate the question because when I look backwards, I think to myself all of the ways that we used to write and the ways that we write now, namely that we're now split up a little bit more around the world. So we have to leverage the internet and digital tools to kind of share our ideas and bring demos to life for ultimately a final product, which is in this case, Alunea. And with that, we started off as like a sort of sciency, spacey deathcore band. That was our focus. Our main influences were like Fallujah, Aegean, The Contortionist. Those were kind of the bands we wanted to blend the sounds and the elements of. But since then, 13 years ago, we've kind of tried to move a little bit further into the prog sphere. In 2017, we had an album called The Almanac, and this was the first album that our singer Mark had to sing on. And I say had to because he told us, he's like, you guys are strumming chords and these are like waltzes in like 6/4. He's like, I'm gonna have to sing. I can't just scream over these beautiful melodies. And so from that point on, we sort of redefined what the music that we were writing. And if we look forward now to Alunea, we're still using the roots of what we call death gaze, but it's less about the like shoegaze element of it, and it's more about the prog. So I think of it more as like a prog death album, if I had to give it a word.
Yeah, there's so many labels.
There is.
But listening to the album, I'm like, yeah, there's more prog stuff here. Uh,
Yeah.
like when I think of like a prog, obviously prog death, because there's so many prog, like there's like emo prog, like Coheed and Cambria,
Sure.
for example. So you never know. So I know this album is a continuation of the story in the Almanac. Was that something that you knew you were gonna do before you started the recording process, or it was something that while you were working on the album just happened to happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I think about my memory of sitting with Mark and sort of digitally talking with the guys, we actually were thinking about what the album feels like when it was whatever portion of it was written. It might have been halfway written or three quarters, whatever it was. I was asking everybody, what should the story of this album be? Should it be a continuation of this what we call the Kardashev mythos? It's like the overarching story that kind of has multiple albums involved. Or should we make it a concept album like Liminal Right or Peripety? And our singer Mark said he really liked the sort of emotional energy of this record, and he thought it was a very natural progression from the Almanac. He said, if I think about the story of the Almanac, this character has like gone through all of these like sort of experiences and adventures through the music that we've written, and now we have the opportunity here from at least a sonic perspective, from the melodies, from the intensity, but also like the open atmospheric moments. He said it feels very similar to the Almanac, and I think it would be cool to continue that story now. So we had the album about halfway written probably by the time he decided it was important to continue the Almanac story.
So did you have to tweak the lyrics or something?
So with the lyrics, this is kind of interesting. He doesn't write a single lyric until the entire album is done. Once we've composed everything and polished it and decided on like melodies and harmonies and movements, he then sits down and listens to the whole thing. And I guess in a way, he plots out what the story elements would be based on the energy of the music. and then he writes the lyrics from there. So really, he just always waits till the end and hears the final product and then decides what story to deliver with it.
That's interesting because that way, like, imagine if he had like written part and then he's like, God damn it, now I gotta change all of this. So once Mark writes the story, then he tells you what the story's about, and I'm guessing you have like a group, like a group meeting to say like, yeah, that sounds good,
Yeah.
or you can say to Mark, no, delete that, Mark.
You know what's interesting is we have this kind of like rule in the band, and that is that you are the master of your instrument. So, although people in the band, obviously within us, we can criticize one another, we always leave it to that person because it is their domain of mastery. So, with Mark, when we hear him execute a vocal line or when we hear him sing a melody, we might give him our honest opinion about it. We'll say something like, "That sounds a little bit too Disney." Or we'll say that the pattern there, it doesn't fit the guitars very well. Should we change the guitars or do you want to change your pattern? And we kind of have these long, elaborate negotiations for moments that have a little bit more friction in the writing process. So for him to sit there at the very end and make all of these vocal decisions, lyrical decisions, when he's doing that, he still includes us. It's not like he's a little like lab rat, working away on the final product. He still sends us the demos and says, "What do you guys think of this?" And he invites our feedback. So we don't have to change very much once his job is done, but we're open to doing so if we think it'll make a better experience for the fans.
Yeah, and I love that you describe something as sounding too Disney, because I have used that phrase uh, in album reviews. I reviewed an album by Bruce Dickinson, his last album, and I said that one of his songs sounded too Disney.
To Disney. Yeah, it's understandable. I tell this to Mark all the time. I'm like, dude, your deliveries just feel like Disney songs sometimes. And he's like, it's a good melody. I don't know. Maybe it is a Disney song. Who knows? And he just kind of throws his hands up. It's funny.
That is kind of funny. So
Yeah.
you have some guest musicians on this record. Tell me a little bit about
Yes.
who are on this record.
Sure. So the first one that I'll mention is Erin Dawson. She goes under the artist name Genital Shame, and she used to be a one woman black metal band out of, I think she's in Pennsylvania. Don't quote me on that. It's like something over there in the East Coast. But her one of her songs came across Mark's YouTube algorithm, and he was compelled by the thumbnail. And he was like, I got to see what this is. This is really interesting. He clicks on it and he hears this super raw, avant garde black metal. And he starts to investigate. He's like, how have I never heard this before? This is really interesting. So he does his little like research on social media, finding out who's behind it. And he comes to find out that it's Erin and she has a social media presence. And so he sends her a DM and says, "Hey, I just came across your music and it's really awesome. Great job. Keep it up." And that opened the conversation for them. So she was able to reply and they kind of got a rapport. And he said, "Hey, I'm working on an album and I love your voice. Would you like to guest on one of our songs?" And she said, "Yeah, absolutely." So it just so happened that the YouTube algorithm really worked out for us on that night. And we were able to kind of meet Erin and get her to work with us on one of our songs. And then the second one is kind of it's a more like heartwarming story. We have an online community through an app called Discord. And we kind of foster this community for like the super fans of Kardashev who want to get away from the algorithms of social media. In a way, it's kind of a place for us to directly speak with them instead of hoping that our post sees their feed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one day I'm on Discord listening to one of the tracks that we're working on, and I thought to myself, it would be really cool if we had some kind of, I don't know, some kind of like exotic instrument performed on this particular section of a song. And so I reached out to that Discord community and I said, "Hey, does anybody here play like kind of a weird, like sort of you don't hear about very often instrument? And if you do, can you record yourself and do you want to collaborate with us?" And so a handful of people replied and said, "Hey, I would love to, but I can't record," or "Hey, I don't have an instrument anymore, but I used to play this." But one of those people, Pavel, he replied and said, "I have an instrument called a duduk, and I would love to try something over your music if you're open to it." So I sent him the music, And I think within like an hour or so, he sent me back the composition that is there on the album of him performing. And I thought, yo, this is great. Let's just keep it. And I sent it to the boys in the band, and they said, yeah, this is really beautiful. And it sounds super exotic, like an instrument that you would only hear in like a Hans Zimmer score for Dune or something. So I was like, yes, we have to keep it. So we're crediting him for that little solo that he kind of has underneath Mark's singing. And it's really beautiful.
I think that's in one of the ending songs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he's on, excuse me, track 7 of 8, which I think is We Could Fold the Stars. I'm pretty sure that's the track he's on.
Yeah, I know the album has 8 tracks, and you have those first one. You put a lyric video for Reunion. Uh,
Yes.
I like it because I think it's a great singing, and there's an allegory of hope on this song, and there's a continuation of something of the character from the almanac. So tell me a little bit about Reunion.
Yeah, sure. So Reunion is the second song on Alunea, and it's named Reunion because it kind of signifies the moment when these two characters realize who each other are and they begin to build rapport. There's a line in there that Mark sings where he says something to the effect of, how do you know who I am when we've only just met? And the other character gets to reply and says words to the effect of, I may not know you as an individual, but I know where you come from. And so, in a way, they have like a sort of cultural respect. They have an awareness that this person is more than just what they see in front of them. They also carry the maybe the beliefs, maybe the culture, maybe recipes, language. There's so many things that one person is besides what they look like and how they sound. And so Reunion kind of is that moment in the album when the two of them meet and recognize, well, one of them is able to recognize the other for who they might be. And then they can kind of develop their communication through the language of Alunea, which is what the album is called, because this language was made by my singer to represent one of the characters who comes from a fictional place. And so that's kind of the idea behind that song.
And that's very creative. And I
I
like
agree.
Alanea. I'm like, what the hell is Alanea? But it
Mhm.
sounds pretty. So it's a language. And the
Yeah.
other you have Seed of Light. You actually directed the video.
Yeah, I was one of two directors, and I would like to be very transparent about this because I haven't gotten to speak about it very much. And that is that Felix Rudolph was the director. Anytime you see actors that are not band members, or even like moments of B-roll with like flowers or bricks, that was all his design. The directing that I would have done was more of like a producer role. So I don't know if I could be so much a director as a producer, but I helped piece the music video together to try and reveal the story in a beautiful and enjoyable way. That was kind of the extent that I had besides performing guitar, in my own piece of the music video. So yeah, it was an awesome experience though. We got to do that here in Germany. We had a team in Arizona in the United States who filmed Mark and Alex. And then we had a team in Canada who filmed Sean with his drum set. And then we had the German team, which was me and the director and the actors. And all of those pieces had to come together. I think it was something like 70 different shots that I had to figure out how to piece and build the story with. So it was a first time for me. And I think I did an okay job.
Yeah, no, the video looks good. And something that I love about this album is like Mark does some great singing on it. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, death metal and the growls, and it's good. But I think the singing on this album is great and really emotional. I don't know. I thought of like emotion of a band like Fries, even though you guys and Fries sound nothing alike. It's a totally different spectrum. But even your singer, I was looking at him, and he kind of looks a little bit like the singer of Fries. Like like they have some similarities to them.
Yeah,
But so
he often gets compared to Zach Galifianakis, which is the best comparison anybody can make. He just looks so
oh
similar to him. Yeah. But you're right. He does an incredible job with singing. As a matter of fact, on this record, he does 10 unique vocal styles. I think 3 or 4 of them he hasn't even done on a previous record before. because he either hadn't been confident enough with his skill, or he wasn't even aware that the fans and his own creativity would want to leverage that kind of vocal style. So if I remember correctly, it's like he does his normal vocal fries, or sorry, not fries, what are they called? His normal harsh vocals, what I'm trying to say. And then he has different singing styles that we kind of delineate for different moments of the album. Moments where it's delicate, he kind of sings a little bit more under his breath, but then we have these huge soaring melodic moments where he has to kind of like power belt in a way. He has to sing very loud and powerfully. But then he also does an inhale at one point. He does arytenoidal screams, which is kind of the more like crackly, throaty sound, and his capabilities are incredible. So yeah, I agree with you. The vocals absolutely stand out on this record.
No, yeah, it has some different. I'm like, yeah, this is impressive with the different styles that they're meshing in, and I think it gives it like a difference in style to the music. So I want to show the artwork of the album that's
Okay.
coming soon. Okay, here's the album artwork for Alunea. So tell me a little bit about what you guys as a band were going for with this artwork.
Sure. So a concept that we had played with many years ago, thanks to a roommate of mine, Riley, was he introduced us to the idea of an architectural period of time known as Elizabethan Baroque. And this is something that you would have seen in like maybe the Soviet era Russia, but it's usually for like the oligarchies. You know, it's kind of it's very expensive, but it's also very beautiful to make this kind of artwork. And so that's where you get the gold frame here. This is like the gold filigree. We were inspired by that. A really modern sort of example of this would be if you've ever seen the movie The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. There's a character in that movie who's Captain Nemo, and he drives this really cool looking car. That car embodies Elizabethan Baroque architecture, and they just happened to plug it into a car. So that was kind of a piece of the story. And what that means is it's not wildly colorful. It's architecturally based, so you're not going to have a lot of characters really in that sort of space. But it allows you to build structure. And so in the spirit of the album, which is about this one of the two characters terraforming a planet for the inevitable arrival of humanity, they have to build with their hands. And so we thought, how beautiful would it be if the world that they ultimately are trying to build looks like Elizabethan Baroque architecture. So that's kind of where the gold filigree comes from. Obviously, the two sets of hands represent the two characters that the whole album is about. One of them has their hands on top as if they're sort of experiencing what the other character is holding. Um, and the character on the right, this would be the sort of robot that's creating. And that's why they're holding a stone structure with some foliage and their armor, which it looks like armor, like pauldrons. That's kind of to represent the sort of that they are not human. They are not like, you know, skin and bone. They actually have like metal as part of their exoskeleton type of thing, although it's not Austrian Death Machine. So he's holding the stones and the foliage as if I have created this is his offering. And then the other character is sort of looking at what they've created and experiencing it. And the colors are also by design. We wanted it to be very close to black and white, but shades of blue make it a little bit more delicate. So you have this brutalist architecture with this beautiful filigree, and you have two characters, one made of metal, kind of, and the other made of skin and bone, and they're having this delicate exchange around philosophy and what it means to have purpose in life.
Yeah, it's a very deep concept, and I don't know you. Unfortunately, I did see the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Terrible movie, but you guys, are you seeing the future? Like,
No, no, I don't think so. Why do you ask?
because we feel like having to go to another planet. I'm like, it seems like we may have to do so, but hey, maybe Katy Perry will get there first.
Yeah, well, she's definitely more qualified than me at this point. I'll tell you that much.
She spent
For
11 minutes in space. Not even
yeah,
the stratosphere. So come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of cool. The funny thing is, there used to be this question sort of on the internet and with my friend group, and that was like, would you take a one-way ticket to Mars? And when I was thinking about it back then, I thought, yeah, absolutely. It sounds like an adventure, and like, why not? But now that I kind of look at the way that the logistics and the infrastructure of what going to Mars might actually entail, I'm like, I don't know, man. It sounds kind of miserable and like super risky in a way that I wasn't anticipating. I guess
Yeah,
Elon Musk isn't selling us the dream as much as he used to, right?
probably he didn't see Total Recall
Mm.
with Arnold, where he goes outside. And,
Yeah, and his eyes start to bulge out.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah. That's a
that's
great movie. I got to watch that again.
oh yeah. But that's a cool concept. I'm also it kind of when you were explaining, I don't know why I thought of the movie Prometheus. Because
Love that.
the the engineers that are supposed they never explained that story. They just did that movie and then they were like, "Fuck it."
Yeah, I think that's some of the most beautiful art is when they don't explain it. I actually am really bad at this. I love telling people all of the details. I mean, listen to how long I went on about the album artwork. Like, I love explaining absolutely every detail, but then the people who want to interpret art, then now they kind of know what's going on, and they're not as interested in interpreting what's going on. So, I think I tend to agree that it's cool when you have answers, but it's more fun to just interpret something without any context. And that's what I hope a lot of people get to do with Alunea. I hope that they ask questions like, what's he saying? Is this English? What language is this? And they start Googling. I've already had people send me messages. Hey man, I tried to use Google Translate on this section because the lyrics are on your videos and nothing came up. What's going on? And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's a language we made. And there's a dictionary coming with the album. So it's kind of a fun idea to think about.
That's a dictionary comment. This is Game of Thrones level stuff.
I don't know if it's that deep. R.R. Martin can have all the credit in the world,
Hey,
but Mark did a really good job with the language.
maybe more Dune. Uh, by the way, if did you see that last that they did a prequel of Dune on HBO? Did you watch?
No.
Oh my god, I watched it and it's so fucking boring.
Is it like Rings of Power boring, where you're like, I don't know why I care about any of these
I,
people?
I watched it because I like Dune, but I was like falling asleep to those episodes. I'm like, I don't care about what happens. And I'm like, this is boring as. Uh,
That's funny.
but yeah, but you don't like you explained a little bit, but you didn't go full Marvel. When you
Hmm.
go full Marvel, it's like you give us everything in the trailer, and like, why do I gotta go see your fucking movie? You just
Yeah.
told me in the trailer.
Yeah, I totally get it. I also think that that's kind of a tragedy with social media. Being a musician, I'm stuck more often making content for the algorithm, the gods of the algorithm, than I am practicing my instrument or writing new music. And that's really shameful for me to say, but it's the honest truth. And so the funny thing is, the only way it seems like that we can market to the algorithm in a meaningful way is to reveal the most important parts of whatever we make. If an artist is a painter and they just throw the photo up there, people think the extent of their painting is this digital representation that's this big in front of their face. It's like, no, dude, this is like a 2 meter by 2 meter painting in real life in a gallery that took this person months to make. Don't let this be the extent if you find it genuinely good. And I think the same thing is true with music. People are going to listen to the single and walk away. They're not going to put a reminder in their calendar. They're not going to send it to a friend because that's kind of the distilled nature of social media. It's a billboard and then you drive past it and you never think about it again. It's really sad.
Not me. That's why I have the YouTube channel. I love talking
Dude, there
music.
you go, man. See, creating. Got to create. Everybody should create.
I
I love it.
create, but it's funny. When I do an album review that I'm glorious, that I'm saying this album is the best thing, I get less views when I say this is shit.
Yeah. You
It's-
know, Yeah, my singer has a YouTube channel and he has seen a similar thing. He tries to stay positive because he wants to focus on helping people and obviously highlighting the qualities of whatever he's talking about, probably like yourself. But he gets more views when the thumbnail says, "Is this the worst singer ever?" or something to that effect. People are like, "Oh, I got to go refute this opinion." So it's weird that it's like we're all pre-programmed to combat one another through social media instead of like all celebrating the beautiful parts of social media. I don't know. It's weird.
That's right. So the album's gonna be out this Friday. No, next Friday.
Yeah, the 25th. So let me take a look.
I
Next Friday. Yeah, you're right.
That's my girlfriend's birthday, so I remember that. And also, you're putting out the album the same day that Ghost is putting out a new album.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on Lambgoat's website. I was like,
Right.
ooh,
Damn
ooh.
you, by George.
Yeah, yeah. And here's another one for you. Speaking of birthdays, our name is Kardashev, and we are named after a Soviet astrophysicist, Nikolai Kardashev, and his birthday is April 25th. Completely coincidental. We did not plan that. The record label was like, "You're going to release it on this day." And we were like, "You got it."
If
So
I had
funny.
friends, I would call Tobias Forge and tell him he needed to put out the album the 18th. You know why?
Why the 18th?
It's Good Friday. What
Oh,
put out an album full of Satanism on Good Friday?
that would
Before
be pretty sick.
that would have
Actually,
been genius. That would,
yeah, that would have been. I think Behemoth is doing that this year, aren't they? Aren't they doing that
no,
with Shit of God?
the album is out in May.
Oh, okay.
But you
Yeah,
know
my
what?
mistake. My bad.
Behemoth is cool, but Adam sometimes he's too cringy in like, oh, I'm such a Satanist. I like how Tobias Forge does it because they do it in a playful way. Like, like I don't know. It's more of the image because like the music of them it's more tongue in cheek. So I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are putting out that day, and it's going out through Metal Blade Records. I'll post the link for people who want to pre-order. So once the album is out, do you have some shows? What's next?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. So after the album is out, I would encourage fans to hopefully share it, buy it if you want the physical copy, which includes the dictionary, at least in the CD version. And then the vinyl also has collectible variants, right? There are three of them. But after that album is out, I invite anybody listening or watching this right now to come to our Discord. Come hang out with us. Talk to us. Like, talk with me. I stream five days a week on Twitch, and once a month I perform the guitar parts of Kardashev on Twitch as well. So anybody is welcome to be a part of these communities, to be part of the streaming events, and hopefully the album lasts for a long time in your playlist. And that's all I can really hope for at this point.
Yeah, I think I need to open a Discord. Maybe that's a good way to reach my couchers.
Yeah, it might be. And you know what? It's been great for making sure you get a hold of everybody who wants to be gotten a hold of. Like I said, there's no algorithm determining whether or not your information gets pushed to everybody. They will see it as long as they want to be there. So it's really valuable, I think.
Awesome. So, Nico, I want to thank you, for taking some time to chat with me. I really had fun talking with you about all things. Obviously, Kardashev and other bands. It's been fun. So,
Yeah.
the album Alunea out on April 25th on Metal Blade Records. I would recommend this for people who love progressive, like death metal music that in concept albums because there's a lot of things on this story that I think it's not an album for a first listen. You got to listen to it, and I got the promo, so I had to read like what's it all about. So I had
Yeah.
some. So Nico, anything you like to say to the fans before we go?
Yeah. Follow your heart. Have fun. Be safe. Use protection. Don't die. You're a chill dude on a couch. Thank you so much for your time.
Use protection. That's a that's a good one. But yes, please, couchers, use protection. So until next time, couchers, this sector, the shield dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.